Secretary of State Marco Rubio is meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu after Israel's strike on Hamas leaders in Qatar. Yesterday, the two visited the Western Wall in Israel, where they prayed for hostages still held by Hamas. And earlier today, the two held a bilateral meeting where Rubio was asked whether the strike on Qatar is a crisis for American diplomacy.
We have strong relationships with our Gulf allies. We work very closely with them on a number of things. We've been engaged with them. We've been engaged with them consistently before what happened and after what happened. And ultimately, the point we will make to everybody is that some fundamentals still remain to have to be addressed, irrespective of what has occurred. The reality of it is we still have 48 hostages. We still have a Hamas that is not only holding 48 hostages, they're holding Gaza hostage, and they're using civilians as human shields.
Meanwhile, multiple buildings are destroyed in Gaza City after the Israeli military says it targeted a high-rise being used by Hamas. Hospitals across Gaza are recording at least 68 deaths in the past 24 hours. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says that number includes 10 people attempting to collect humanitarian aid. ABC News foreign correspondent Tom Soufi-Burridge and former senior director for counterterrorism on the National Security Council, Javed Ali, are here with more. Javed, what does this meeting between Rubio and Netanyahu tell you about U.S.-Israeli relations right now?
So, Diane, nice to be with you and Tom this morning. So the meeting with Secretary Rubio and Prime Minister Netanyahu a week after the Israeli strike in Doha, Qatar, shows that the U.S. is trying to move forward with the U.S.-Israeli relationship and at the same time sort of make sure that the fences are mended on the U.S.-Qatar side, because that's a very important relationship too. But I think the signal is that the Israeli full-scale assault on Gaza City, which has not fully happened yet, that is probably the next big thing. And Secretary Rubio's meeting is probably a prelude to that in some respects.
Tom, Netanyahu is calling last week's strike in Doha a wholly independent decision and that, quote, we assume full responsibility. What's the latest there? What do you think he means by that?
Yeah, I think what's interesting in these press conferences from leaders, Diane, is what leaders do and don't say. And what Prime Minister Netanyahu was not able to tell us much more about was his assessment of whether or not Hamas leaders were killed in that attack. I mean, he kind of dodged that question. Hamas has said only the son of one of their leaders, security guards and a Qatari security official. I mean, I think, what he did do is double down on the rationale for it. He also basically was asked whether or not Israel would do it again effectively and go after Hamas operatives in the sovereign territory of another nation. And he defended that principle. And he basically said that what Israel did achieve, because he kind of disputed the idea that the operation had failed, but Netanyahu did say that he believed Israel had sent a kind of unequivocal message to terrorists, basically saying they can run, they can hide, but that Israel will get them. So, the backdrop to this is, Diane, that, a lot of Arab nations are meeting in Qatar with Qatar right now. And we've just had some comments from the Emir of Qatar, very, very strong criticisms of Israel once again, calling Israeli aggression blatant, treacherous and cowardly, accusing the government in Israel of being extremist, saying that it practices, quote, terrorist policy. So I think, what we're really getting a sense of is the fallout in terms of Israel's relations with Qatar, who it did have diplomatic relations with, is absolutely immense. And there is a sense in the Arab world that Israel has kind of overstepped its mark. And we're still kind of seeing the fallout play out. And what we're just learning from State Department officials is that Marco Rubio will go to Qatar after Israel. So, clearly the US is trying to kind of mend those relations. And the US itself has said it wasn't happy about the Israeli attack on Qatar.
And Javed, Qatar's prime minister says Israel's attack will not lead to anything but aborting de-escalating efforts. How significant is that?
So this is a serious issue, because based on the language coming out of Qatar, and as Tom mentioned, other Arab countries are meeting in Qatar right now, it would appear that the diplomatic channel that had been active and made some progress, but then would always be a step back or two, that channel, for the most part, at least to resolve the conflict between Israel and Hamas, seems to have dissipated. So if that's the case, what will it take to bring diplomacy back? And in the meantime, it looks like the Israeli military is gearing up for this full-scale assault. And maybe that is what Prime Minister Netanyahu wants. But I think the prospects for diplomacy bringing out of the conflict, at least right now, are very, very dim.
Tom, what are you learning about the Trump administration's position on the war in Gaza and a possible IDF ground operation on Gaza City?
Yeah, Diane, look, the Trump administration is now fully behind the Israeli government's position that all of the hostages have to be released in one go and that Hamas has to be eliminated, has to go as any kind of military political force. And there was one key phrase from Marco Rubio, I think, at this press conference. He said that if diplomacy fails, if Hamas can't be convinced, pressured to step down or disband, then he said a concise military operation may be required to eliminate Hamas. And I think that is one of, if not the first time, a senior Trump administration official has endorsed or backed the idea of an IDF ground operation into Gaza City, which we're seeing play out right now. We're seeing the IDF take down these tower blocks, which it accuses Hamas of using. And we're seeing, dramatic images of that right now. Diane?
Tom Soufi Purridge, Javed Ali, thank you both.